Hello everyone and welcome to this edition of Inside NPS on the Pentagon Channel. From Monterey, California, I'm your host Alan Richmond. Welcome to the show. On this episode, we'll take you aboard the USS John C. Stennis, one of our best aircraft carriers in the Naval Fleet. We'll visit with the commanding officer of the Strike Force Group we were assigned with, as well as crew members, some of the pilots on the F-18s and other aircraft, as well as some of the NPS alumni. We'll also talk about the Regional Security Education Program, or RSEP, that started here at NPS. But first, recently we had the opportunity to sit down and talk with Secretary of Defense Leon Panetta. Secretary of Defense Leon E. Panetta visited the Naval Postgraduate School in Monterey, California on August 22nd to meet with students and address the student body of the university. It was his first official visit to NPS as Secretary of Defense. Panetta is a lifelong resident of Monterey County and has been a strong supporter of the institution during his service in the U.S. House of Representatives and now as Secretary of Defense. He was sworn in as the 23rd Secretary of Defense on July 1st of this year, after serving as the Director of the Central Intelligence Agency, and before that, Chief of Staff for President Bill Clinton. Panetta has also been active locally, with 10 years as co-director of the Leon and Sylvia Panetta Institute for Public Policy at nearby California State University, Monterey Bay. With his decades of experience in public policy and government service, Panetta understands the challenges facing the country and the Defense Department, which he spoke about in his address to the NPS community. I had the opportunity to speak with him as well about the role NPS plays in advanced education, research, technology, and relevance to the Navy. Secretary Panetta, thank you so much for taking time to be with us here on the Pentagon Channel on Inside the Naval Postgraduate School. First of all, welcome home, and thank you for all the support you've given the Naval Postgraduate School through these many years. We appreciate it. Let's start off by talking a little bit about the relevance of NPS today.
I think it's absolutely essential to our national defense today, because we're dealing with incredibly complicated new technologies in war. New weapons, new cyber threats. Some of the most remarkable stuff that you've ever seen. And our ability to have young men and women who are smart, who have the skills, who have the creativity, who have the strategic thinking necessary to be able to use those kinds of new technologies is what's going to make the difference in terms of whether or not we're on the cutting edge or whether we're on the back edge of the future.
So in essence, NPS is leading the way in that technology, right?
No, absolutely. I mean, I think the quality of research here, the quality of faculty, the students who are coming here, I think they're being exposed to really some of the most remarkable training that we can provide in this country. I mean, there's some very unique courses here in the nuclear arena, in the cyber arena, in new technologies, in new war-making technologies. This is the place that is kind of, what I would call the higher institute of education for our military that is going to really improve our capabilities for the future.
Well, of course, there's lots of talk and speculation about cuts in the defense budget. What's your viewpoint at this point in time?
Well, there's no question that we're at a time when resources are going to be more limited. But at the same time, what I have to depend on is the commitment of national leadership that they want to protect a strong national defense, that we don't want to have a country that isn't the strongest military in the world. That's what we are today. And if the leaders of this country, both Republican and Democrat, are committed to maintaining that, then the Navy Postgraduate School doesn't have anything to worry about.
Well, of course, family support is essential to warfighters and all of the folks that are in the military. What message would you like to convey to the families of our military personnel?
I think one of the most important things, in addition, obviously, to looking at our force structure, looking at our weapons, looking at our capabilities to meet the threats of the future, is maintaining faith with the troops and their families. I mean, the strongest element of our national defense is a volunteer force. And the only reason we have a volunteer force is because they know we're behind them 100%. We'll back them up, we'll give them the benefits they need for the sacrifices that they have to make. And that is a critical element of keeping our country strong.
Mr. Secretary, thank you very much for spending time with us here on Inside NPS on the Pentagon Channel, and thank you for your leadership and all that you do for our nation.
Thanks, Alan. Good to see you.
Well, special thank you to Secretary of Defense Leon Panetta for taking time out of his busy schedule to meet with us here at NPS. Well, up next, the Regional Security Educational Program known as RSEP. On July 31st, faculty members from the Naval Postgraduate School's Regional Security Education Program, or RSEP, embarked on the USS John C. Stennis to deliver cultural education and diplomatic training to the John C. Stennis Strike Group in an effort to enhance mission readiness and improve regional situational awareness. During our time on the Stennis, we had the opportunity to meet with RSEP faculty members as well as team leader, retired Rear Admiral Steve Loeffler, to find out more about the impact of the program that originated at NPS. How do you pick the topics and how do you pick the NPS professors to come along and what is their goal?
We choose the professors that we think will best fit the means. Some of them are from NPS, others are subject matter experts that are colleagues of our NPS professors from around the country. Yeah. Everything from think tanks like RAND and AEI, present with us now, to those from other universities. All told, we have 31 different presentations that we've done here aboard John C. Stennis.
NPS is really known for its global outreach, so much in distance learning, and I suppose the goal then of the RSEP really is to educate the officers with the changing times and cultures and really give them new knowledge as they go to these areas.
Yes. CNOs, Admiral Clark, Admiral Mullen when he was CNO, and now Admiral Ruffhead. I think it's very important. As a matter of fact, Admiral Ruffhead, when he was the commander of the Second Fleet, expanded the program to the Atlantic Fleet. We had just been doing the Pacific Fleet through the end of 2004. And now we cover all deploying carrier strike groups, expeditionary strike groups, SEAL teams, some of the CNECC units for the Expeditionary Combat Command, folks that go into places like Kuwait, Bahrain, and other spots. So the program has, really added itself, if you will, to the global outreach that we already have through CCMR, DERMI, and other organizations within NPS to make us, in many ways, the premier global outreach part of the Defense University complex that NPS is.
And what's the way ahead? Where would you like to see the program go and how would you like to see it expand?
As we reach out further, as OIF and OEF wind down, and we find ourselves engaged more in Africa Partnership Station, Pacific Partnership Program, the Southern Partnership Program, and Latin America, that will need more and more, if you will, RSEP or RSEP-like programs to make sure that our sailors and Marines who are going to be traveling to those distant lands, operating with their forces, and then going ashore and visiting those countries, will understand everything from the history and political military relationships that they have with the United States, and also be prepared for the theater security engagement, theater security cooperation responsibilities that they have by being visitors to those countries.
Thanks very much to Admiral Loeffler for his overview of RSEP. We'll be back later in the show with a couple of the professors that traveled with us and delivered briefs aboard the Stennis. Stay with us, more to come on Inside NPS here on the Pentagon Channel. Welcome back to Inside NPS. Well, while we were aboard the Stennis, we had an opportunity to visit with one of the professors traveling with the Regional Security Education Program, delivering briefs to the pilots, Robert Rook. We also had a chance to talk to him and get his perspective on the importance and significance of RSEP.
I brief a variety of topics in and around Arab-Israeli, Israeli-Palestinian, and also Persian Gulf issues. I tend to be identified as one of the Arab guys on the team. So essentially it's Arab-Israeli focus that's been expanded to include Iran primarily, but also some peripheral topics that very much have relevance within that framework. Well, my perception is when I first started doing RSEP, I wasn't really sure what to expect because I'd never really briefed in a military context. But what I've increasingly discovered is, one, briefing's a lot like just teaching in an upper division or graduate level classroom, but you have individuals in the classroom at sea in a briefing environment who are very much invested in the topic because they're going to sail into it, fly through it, whatever. And so my basic experience with it is that the topics have been well received. The questions have been numerous and very direct and very helpful, not only in terms of providing me with an opportunity to provide additional information that's relevant to what they're doing, but also in helping me further shape the brief so that the next ready room or the next constituency I confront on board or in the next RCEP can benefit from that further shaping of the brief. The degree of commitment that you see everywhere you turn, on deck, in the P-ways, I mean, you can't escape the palpable feeling of the depth of their commitment and their willingness to go forward in the defense and support of this great nation.
Well, we had several professors traveling with us on the RCEP, and we'll have a chance to talk with them in our next episode. But from RCEP to the commanding officer of the USS John C. Stennis, Captain Ronald Reese. Thanks very much for taking time to talk to us, Captain. I appreciate it. Can you tell us a little bit about your role as the commanding officer?
Absolutely. You know, Alan, this is one of our Navy's greatest warships. It's a nuclear carrier, and with it you have 2 nuclear reactors on board. You have 5,000 sailors. Along with that, you have 60 to 70 strike aircraft, and it's designed to uphold our very way of life. You know, I'm a firm believer that the United States Navy, when I speak about the United States Navy, I'm speaking about the United States Navy and the United States Marine Corps team, okay? We're flanked by 2 great oceans. We have gone to sea from the inception of our country in order to support who and what we are as a people. And the reason that war and conflict has not come to our shores is directly related to this fine institution that I'm part of.
And how long have you been the commanding officer of the Stennis?
I've had 2 commands. I was the commanding officer of the Fighting 132nd, and then I was fortunate enough to be command of a Nassau, a large deck amphib. I did 159 consecutive days at sea, tied the modern day record out there. And then I've recently taken command of John C. Stennis. I took command on March 18th of this year.
And what is the overall mission of the Stennis in broad terms?
When I look at the Stennis, I think about upholding our very way of life. This is the crown jewel in the United States Navy, and it is designed to forwardly move throughout the world at a very rapid pace in order to meet whatever that conflict may be. Now, to our friends, we are very welcome, and to our enemies, we are feared. And it is a direct result of the capabilities that are resident aboard this ship here.
What are some of the biggest challenges as a commanding officer that you face with an aircraft carrier of this size and a crew of this size?
They're tremendous. I mean, they come at me all the time. But what I can say is the staff that I have supporting me is second to none. I mean, they're some of the finest officers in the United States military today, and in particular the United States Navy. And so the structure of the organization inside the lifelines of the carrier itself allows us to handle any type of situation that may be coming at us. And so that can range from the full spectrum, from humanitarian efforts to peaceful cooperation with countries to conflict possibly out there. And so my role is to ensure that everything remains on track and that we're able to focus the resources and the energies that are associated with this combat ship to whatever that given task may be. And that's a difficult problem.
And quite a team effort, obviously. We've noticed that we're out in the middle of the ocean where it is around the world. You have to be pretty self-sufficient.
You do. You know, along with the 5,000 sailors. If you just take that real quickly and you say to yourself, 4 meals a day, because that's basically what we work. That's 20,000 meals a day is the output of the ship here. So not only are we worried about all the daily in and out functions that are required in order to support, you know, the sailors on board, but with that we also have to project outside of the lifelines of the ship, and that takes a tremendous amount.
What sets the Stennis apart from some of the other aircraft carriers in the fleet?
You know, I'll start off by saying that the Carrier Strike Group is the fundamental way that we fight as a Navy when we sail overseas. And in that, the Nimitz class carrier is the crown jewel, the foundation of that carrier strike group. And Stennis has completed its workup cycle, which is very lengthy, and it's a similar workup cycle that all carriers go through. So in that, we set sail for various periods of time, and we focus initially on unit level training for the ship itself, and then air wing integration, and then the carrier strike group integration, and then we take a look at a joint and coalition piece to it, so that way we are prepared for all contingency operations that may come at us. Now, Stennis has done that extremely well, okay? All carriers do that very well, and we are equipped and in a position that we will set forth and do good things for our country.
What's your proudest feeling about being the commanding officer of the Stennis? I mean, I know there are a lot of different components, but if someone just said to you, what's your best accomplishment and your proudest moment of being the commanding officer?
Well, you know, Alan, I appreciate that, but it's not about me. You know, it's about the 5,000 sailors that I get a chance to see down there every day. Let me tell you, there is not a day that goes by that I am not overwhelmed and impressed upon their dedication to service and what they contribute to John C. Stennis and in particular the United States Navy. And so that is what I live for. There is nothing better than that.
While aboard the Stennis, we also had the opportunity to meet with the commanding officer of the Strike Force Group 3, Admiral Craig Fowler.
I'm the commander of the John C. Stennis Strike Group, also named Carrier Strike Group 3. We have dual names. The responsibilities are for the warfighting, the training and readiness of the strike group, which is comprised of 6,000 of America's finest men and women, the ships, Mobile Bay and 4 destroyers, the carrier John C. Stennis, Air Wing, and the and Desron. So we go to war, and that's where we're headed.
Now, do all of those same components stay together for an extended period of time, or just for one deployment and then they're reconfigured?
Well, the great power of the United States Navy is its flexibility and its adaptability and its lethality. So we can take the strike group and deploy it as a package. We train as a package, but we also train in a disaggregated format. With the connectivity that we have, we can do that, the extended range of our weapon systems and our advanced technology aircraft. And so we will be periods of time during our deployment where we'll come together for exercises or operations. There'll be periods of time we'll be spread out over thousands of miles and we'll still be as effective.
Well, we really appreciate your letting us be on ship here and spend a little time with you. Tell us, from your perspective, a little bit about what makes the John C. Stennis a special aircraft carrier.
The John C. Stennis is special. It's because of the people. Those 6,000 men and women, they're motivated, they're well trained. The Navy system works in preparing them for their jobs, and they're well led. The men and women that are on my team, that work for me, work with me, are just eye-watering. You've had a chance to see that this week. The training's a big part of it, and the education's a big part of it. We believe in both, and they come together to make this fantastic team.
Well, it's a huge responsibility being the leader of a team of that many people. Is there a secret to success on that, and how do you approach that?
Well, work hard, try to listen, try to be patient, remember your roots, and have confidence in the training and education that the Navy has invested in me and my team to get us to this point. For me, it's 28 years of training and education and thinking and learning, and for the team working together, it's been some number of months forging us together, and we developed that teamwork, that the bonds of that teamwork it's all about trust.
Well, there's so many moving parts. It reminds me how 365 days a year, 24/7, there's no stopping. I mean, you are at sea, and that's quite a responsibility.
Somewhere on watch every day, United States Navy's out there. We're the away team, 24/7, doing whatever it takes, wherever it takes us around the world. That's us.
What are some of your proudest accomplishments and maybe some of the biggest challenges you face?
That's a super question. Proudest accomplishments, I think each day, just knowing that I have the honor to lead these great men and women, so it kind of wells up every day. Challenges, you know, on the one hand, it's challenging to deploy and go away. On the one hand, you're with the greatest people the world ever. You know, America's Navy's a global force for good. Nothing good happens without these great people. So it's awesome being with them and leading them, but it's challenging being separated from your loved ones back home. I think the way we work through that is we look ahead, knowing that the ultimate good that we do is about the future, the better future for the ones that we have back home, the better future for us. The sacrifices are worthwhile and fulfilling, and that's what gets us through that challenge of separation.
Now, you are an NPS alumnus in 1990, Security Studies, and what are your memories back of those times in Monterey, California?
It was a great time for the family and for me personally and professionally. I remember the instructors, Dr. Jim Wirtz, who's there now as the dean, was one of my instructors. That stretched us and had us think different ways and about different things. It really made me a better leader. Equipped me with some better analytical tools, certainly writing tools that were important and are important going forward. Our goal of our deployment is to, in a big way, continue to enhance stability and security around the world and back home. That's what it is. We're making a long-term investment in the future of this country. This 4.5 acres of sovereign American soil that you've had the privilege and we've had the honor of hosting you and walking around and seeing this technology at work. I mean, that's the best investment going for America.
Well, we'd certainly like to thank Captain Reese and Admiral Fowler for their time aboard the Stennis. They have a very busy schedule, and we appreciate them taking time to be with us here on the Pentagon Channel. More coming up right after this. Well, here we are aboard the USS John C. Stennis, and we're privileged to have the time to talk to Lieutenant Commander Laura Kruger, call name Bambi. Let me start with that. How do you get a call name?
Well, interesting enough, you don't always necessarily have one call sign, is what we call. Usually it's because you've done something stupid or you made a fool of yourself in front of your peers. For me, I have two. I had one that was grouper, because all the girls in the squadron were fish call signs, and I was a grouper. And then they discovered that I hunt and I fish, and that I have a pretty nice whitetail deer in my house that's stuffed from a deer that I shot with my father and my uncles. So they saw that, and being a female, young, Bambi came, and that's the one that stuck about 6 years ago. So
that's great. Well, listen, we appreciate you taking time to talk to us. It's very busy out here at sea, and I know you broke away from one of our briefings, so I appreciate that. How long have you been a pilot, and how did you get into that field? Is it something you always wanted to do as a young girl?
Well, I grew up I was born in 1978, so growing up I saw the typical Top Gun, everything that everybody else seems to watch. And I enjoyed like flying and traveling, but in college I got into just private pilot license and flying there. And from there you go to OCS and decide, all right, I want to at least be in the Navy, and if I can fly. So for me individually, I'm actually an ECMO, which is the NFO, the right seater, the back seater in our platform. And so the training in that you go through for that is similar to the pilots, except for the stick time is what we call it. You're not actually at the controls. But it's just typical path for a normal pilot or aviator, is that you get a little bit interested in it, you get up there flying, and then you get the bug, and you end up making it a career. So
there you go. And talk to us a little bit about your aircraft. It's right behind us, and we're going to get closer to it. But it's a Prowler. Tell us what you do, what it's used for, etc.
Absolutely. The Prowler here, you can see behind us, it's a EA-6B, and it's based on the A-6 Intruder that was backflown in Vietnam. And they took the basic fuselage of it and extended it a little bit, added a second cockpit for specifically what we do, which is the EA portion of that EA-6B, and that's the electronic attack. So we added the extra cockpit there, added the pods you can see underneath the aircraft, and some receiver systems, and that is what makes it the electronic attack EA-6B Prowler.
Good. Well, we wish you a safe journey and a speedy trip home.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Well, we also had a chance to visit with some of the NPS alumnus who are aboard the Stennis. One is Ricardo Trevino, who is in oceanography and meteorology aboard the ship.
I've been on board about 18 months. I am in charge of all meteorological and oceanographic coordination. I also brief the staff on every mission, every operation, every future planning. Anything that we do as a strike group, I inject the weather and the environment and how we can exploit it and how we can be affected by it, especially as we head west to Westpac, one of the most dynamic and energetic areas in the world. I mean, there's typhoons, super typhoons, tsunamis, you name it. It does change our plans. It changed our PIM tracks, our future plans. Everything is impacted by weather, just like you said. Bombs are impacted, sensors, ships. I have to keep in mind that although Stennis has pretty high, can take a lot of high seas and whatnot, I have to look at the strike group as well. I'm the primary person for the staff. I do have some great folks working for me and for the ship. They're actually attached to the ship right now, about 13 folks. I'm looking at the entire big picture strike group, all the other 5 ships that we have with us. We also have another team that does ocean analysis, anti-submarine warfare and all that. So we all come together, and I make sure that we're briefing the same forecast, and that we have one forecast and not multiple forecasts.
It's interesting when you get out in the fleet, how many people have connections back to NPS?
Yes, sir.
How was your experience? Can you tell us a little bit about it?
It's probably the best tour in my naval career. It was great. It was great. It was a great location, great program. I learned a whole bunch. I was able to do my JPME, Phase 1. I interacted with some great professors, mentors, did a thesis in tropical cyclones, and my mentor was outstanding. It was great.
Well, that's it for this show, Part 1 aboard the USS John C. Stennis. Join us next month for our closing episode with more interviews and lots more information about the Stennis. Thanks for joining us. I'm Alan Richmond, your host for Inside NPS here on the Pentagon Channel from Monterey, California. Take care.